Education Committee. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. All right, before we get going to the rest of our agenda, I do want to make one brief announcement, and that is, a lot of folks know Mr. and Miss Rakes, a beloved couple in our community. Bud Rakes was in our school system for over 50 years. As a couple, they were married for 59, and he just lost his wife. And so visitation is this afternoon, and then the service is tomorrow. So please continue to keep that family in your prayers. They're just a precious. They're actually at Life Point. Yeah, yeah. And the service visitation will go till 8 tonight, and then the service is at 1 o'clock tomorrow. So, but yeah, just a precious family. So if you can remember them, that'd be great. All right, I would like to welcome Dr. Bill Kraus up to visit with us. He's with the Housing, Health, and Human Services Alliance of Rutherford County. They deal with our homeless population. He's got
You want me to stand or sit?
no, come sit.
Okay. How are you folks? Besides being cold?
Yes.
Just take a few moments. My name is Bill Kraus. I'm a brand new executive director for ARC, which it's known, serving the county. And I like to say it's more than just serving the homeless. It's actually attempting to serve a whole population that we usually do not take notice of. When we think of homeless, we initially think of people sleeping under a bridge. And that's only part of it. Homeless affects thousands of children in school. When they go up to their teacher and say, "Can you help me?" This has happened many, many times because we don't know where we're going to sleep tonight. Homeless is the veteran who is basically attending at the VA hospital, but basically they have some issues and problems and have not settled and are literally in homes. One of the big issues is affordable housing, and this is a major, major objective of HARP to try to find affordable housing because a number of people who are homeless are working. But if you're earning $14, $15 an hour today, very difficult to be able to afford even an apartment with a $13, $14, $15 per hour job. So a lot of our activity is literally the affordable housing. One thing I've noticed in my couple of months here, and this has been fantastic, this is throughout Rutherford County, and I want to emphasize, we are a county activity, not just Murfreesboro, and in fact now setting up a working relationship with the town of Smyrna. And one of the major things is I have never seen in all my years the amount of men and women in a community that are so dedicated and committed to helping other people. And I think if I were to say anything as an observation, I served for 25 years as a city manager, primarily in Southern California, but also in Williamson County. I have seen such generosity, and I'm not talking about cash generosity, I'm talking about commitments of people. So I'm basically at this stage forging partnerships, forging friendships, forging associations with the commissioners of the county, with the city councils and town councils of the communities, with the advisory boards, with men and women who want to see the addressing of the issues that we do have in Rutherford County. So we're ready to go full speed ahead. Any assistance we can provide. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I do have one question. I've been on the Planning Commission for a long time, about 12 years now. And one of the conversations that we've had is that it's very difficult from a planning standpoint to define what that term affordable housing means.
Yes.
And so one of the examples that we were kind of given was, what is the price of a home that a first-year teacher or firefighter or police officer could afford? And that's kind of been that benchmark. But it sounds more like what you're describing is low-income housing. So is it
lower? We even have to say moderate.
Okay.
The old ratio of being able to afford housing, 25% of pay, really no longer is as significant as it was years ago. It used to be if you earned $10,000 a year, you could afford $2,500 for rent or housing payments and taxes and so forth. It's now, and this is not just for low, it's for moderate, it's closer to 1/3 of a take-home income that is now being devoted to both housing costs, that is payments for rent, and or utility costs related to it. So it really begins to affect. But we are in a weird time. The one thing, and this is a learning curve for me as well, because I haven't really been in this particular aspect of community life, if you may. But the one area that really is part of a whole new system is that one of the things that those actually are homeless, what they need is every day to find a plug to charge up their cell phones. And literally, people are now walking with cell phones no matter what their economic or social status may be. And you used to think that, well, food would be a primary, but even the expense, although many of these folks are under government cell phones that will offset it. But still, you take a look at something like cell phones. A couple of comments. We now have a whole new phenomena of the granny homelessness. And the granny homelessness is a grandparent who suddenly has had to absorb their grandchildren because the parents are out of the picture. And they had been used to a relatively limited housing cost and the ability to expand on the housing as far as grandparents. So the dynamics of who is the needy, who is those potentially needy, when you get into, and I just read the case, I came back from a HUD conference in Miami a couple of weeks ago, and the one story they were talking about is the number of teachers in the Santa Clara area of Northern California, because housing is so extensive that they're living in motorhomes and vans parked in Walmart parking lots and so forth, and technically will be considered as part of the homeless, even though they may be earning $45,000 a year. The housing cost is so extensive in that part of California that unless they commute for an hour and a half, they're in trouble. So it's not a Rutherford County problem, it's a national problem in terms of how do we provide or how do we ensure that literally everybody has the opportunity for housing.
Is there any way for you to gauge what that number is, what that population number is that you're dealing with?
In Rutherford County, we're talking, and this is not necessarily a long statistic, this can be an in and out statistic, we're talking roughly 3,000 to 4,000 people in Rutherford County. And the 3,000 to 4,000 people, and it could be more, because this is not a stationary population, it's a population that may come into homelessness. You can have, for example, a family situation where the family is physically had to split and so forth. Again, problems against the spouse, for example. And how do you deal on the urgency of dealing with somebody for housing? So it can flow. Tragically, it flows more around this time of year that people find themselves without literally a place to live. So it can be 3, it can actually be even more, depending upon what part of the year you're at or what part of the circumstances you are. The most important message that I like to share is that the definition of the need is not necessarily unique to the person who you basically have a stereotype of homelessness, because it transfers into, as I said, veterans, into families with children, into split families and so forth. And I do have to stress this, we want to make sure that the urgency, the immediacy of anybody is taken care of. And one of the aspects of HARC is the cold patrol. And when that temperature, like out there, gets 32 degrees or less, there are many volunteers in this community that are making sure, going throughout the community, making sure that there's nobody staying outside, living in a tent, living under a tree or what have you. And 2 churches in the community opened up their doors for families, single men, single women, and so forth. And it's one of those things that, it's out of sight, out of mind, but when you ultimately see it, it's certainly a mission that is part of taking care of ourselves. It's part of an outreach to others, not just government, not just nonprofit organizations, but the faith base is very involved in it and so forth. And it's a collection, literally, of folks who are concerned about their fellow citizen.
If you had one piece of advice that you could give to every citizen of Rutherford County on how they could contribute to the solution, what would it be?
I actually would think, and usually somebody coming from an organization, well, we need money. Well, money always is certainly good for the participating, but I want to say that HARC, which has been originally the mayor's task force in Murfreesboro, but has expanded into, quote, an umbrella organization. We're not specifically a delivery organization. We're not delivering services. We're the umbrella, we're the tent, if you may, of approximately 55 organizations in Rutherford County, whether they're the cities, whether they're the county, whether they're the nonprofits, whether they're the faith-based, and they specifically, we attempt to coordinate, we attempt to be sure that if there's duplication and a void in another area, see if one organization may reduce its mission in one particular area and expand its mission into another particular area, so that you've got the maximum of resources to address the problem. But I would probably say, at least number one, become aware, and number two, literally the volunteerism to organizations, the support of a church is specifically taking this as part of their mission. Absolutely get involved. If a nonprofit, and there's some wonderful nonprofits dealing with all aspects. The one area I didn't not mention on affordable housing is for senior citizens. And we are, one of our major objectives is to be seeking federal funding or state funding in terms of building housing for seniors. We're not looking to become the attractive point for everybody in the United States to say, well, I'm going to Rutherford County, they've got everything and anything, best food, best shelter, best what have you. Absolutely not. We're here to take care of our folks who may have had a problem, may have had a misadventure.
Well, I know you said you didn't come here for money, but today is Giving Tuesday, so do you want to plug anybody in particular that...
Well, Giving Tuesday is also one's
Yeah.
arms, one's heart, and one's
Yeah.
effort. And to me, the giving is more than just $1.
Yeah, very good. Any other questions?
I do know that we've tried to get some that have mental problems, get them on medication.
Exactly.
And there's no way that we can keep them on the medication. And it's just no way that you can do it.
Absolutely.
Because they forget to take it, they run out of it, and they don't get it refilled and what have you.
Or it becomes a commodity for
Right.
exchange, which is even worse.
Right, that's true.
So that's one of the areas, if I came here and said, I've got all the answers, I've got all the solutions, and we're going to make a perfect world, I would not be telling you the truth. But the big issue is what can we do with what we have, and what limitations we do have, what can we do to maximize our effort? But you're absolutely right.
Did you have some questions?
You said we have 3,000 to 4,000 homeless
At a
right now.
given time, correct.
How many people are we getting influx that is coming in?
The nonprofits, and this is an excellent question. They basically will gravitate to Nashville, primarily because Nashville still has a large variety of organizations. So they haven't found themselves down the 24 corridor. There's very little at this stage of saying, hey, come on down 22 miles down from Nashville, you're going to get a better deal, and so forth. Not going to see that. It's always a possibility, but right now the majority of people are really fall in 4 categories. And the one category is the traditional homeless, who really, and this was quite a education for me, that I did visit a couple of the encampments where they live. And in talking, one thing they dislike is structure, process, policy, procedure. And the more they got talking, I said, what do you think you have in your own little community you've developed? You have standards, you have rules, you have expectations, you have regulations. You've created your own little city or your own little organization, no matter what you go, I guess we have, and so forth. So if you want to call it the base population that has been here for a while, who has been the traditionally homeless, is probably maybe not more than 100 at the very most. Where the concern is the veteran who may suddenly fall off their a medical issue, a physical issue, the woman and children who have to leave their home and they're going to a shelter, the person who is working, who is a Murfreesboro or Rutherford County resident, who is working, but they suddenly find their rents go up, they have no place to go. Or, tragically, the many people who are one paycheck away from being homeless and their whole income. And that can cover the gamut of who's employed. And if they're one paycheck away and they lose their job, it isn't a point. And there are programs within this area that will attempt to give a party first month, last month's rent to at least get them in a rental situation or any type of related costs, so that they say, I don't even have money to pay first month or pay any type of rental situation. Majority would be relatively short term. they're relatively short-term, who are basically residents of the county who have encountered some particular episode in their lives.
Thank you so much for the work you're doing.
Thank
and Thank you
you.
for coming and introducing
May you all
yourself
stay
to us.
warm and have a very Merry Christmas.
You as well.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is Health Department report. Ms. Garrett.
Good evening.
Evening.
Okay,
Can I introduce your name?
oh, she's just come along to us.
Yeah.
This is, for some of you have met her in past meetings, but this is LaShawn Dixon. She's our Assistant County Director. Just wanted to kind of introduce her to everyone. Come up here. They don't bite if you want
We
to
don't
come on.
bite. You can come up here.
Well, it's their time.
You just have to guess which one.
Okay, so we bring the report for October to you. And a few things we wanted to point out. We've been talking about this for several months, building up to it, but as you know, in October, after 100 years nearly, we're close to a 100-year anniversary at the Health Department, we've been doing paper medical records. And we have a lot of those records even back from the beginning. The state Department of Health developed their first in the United States Health Department electronic record, specifically geared towards health departments. Now, there's health departments who are using medical records, but they're adapting a hospital record or something to make it work. So the state of Tennessee decided they would build their own and make it specific, because public health is a lot different than a doctor's office or a hospital or that. So October 22nd, we went live, they call it, with our electronic records. We had a week of training before that, and then a week of go live, where we were trying to learn the system and implement it. And so as of now, we're probably 75% back up in our WIC program, 75% back up in our general clinic, probably about 50% up in our family planning and primary care visits. So we're catching up quick, especially considering the size. 250 patients a day on average is what we see at our two sites. So very, very busy compared to, say, Williamson or Wilson County, who surround us, and they might see 25 or 50 in a day. So we're the biggest in our region as far as numbers, which doesn't surprise us all, right, because of our population. And in the past, I've also brought you customer satisfaction surveys and all that, and how timely we were, and you guys have made comments about, gosh, I wish my doctor was that bad, So we really work on trying to be efficient. We haven't done a great job since the electronic record. We've definitely slipped back on some of our, how long it takes to be seen and those kinds of things. But we did some time studies this week, and I'd say we're, again, 75% back to the speed we were. So we're getting there. It's just a massive change.
Is it just part of the learning curve? Is that
It's the learning curve. The system has, they're constantly updating the system. So as they roll it out to a new region, which Mid-Cumberland, that's the region we're a part of, is the largest populous area. We do more primary care and more visits per day than anywhere across the state. So when they rolled out here, they found out things that didn't happen in East Tennessee, or things that they hadn't discovered in, like Cookeville, until they got to us. And so then they had to quickly adapt the record to handle the things that we had come up. So a little bit is the learning curve, a little bit is just kind of duplication of services. We're still in some of our old systems, but yet we're having to do the new system too. So this is considered 1.0. They expect there to be a 2.0 and a 3.0 before we're really more on this one record instead of the multiple records.
I'll have to say,
And those kind of things.
I went down and visited to get me a flu shot last month,
Uh-huh.
and the lady said, I filled out the paperwork, and they said, it'd be 2 hours. I said, 2 hours for a flu shot? But they did, I want to say they did very well explaining why, and they said they're going through this system and everything.
Yes, yes.
And,
Probably now it'd be more around 20 minutes.
yeah.
Um,
But that was
but
big
that's-
time. I mean, there wasn't a lot of people there taking care of people, and And that was, I thought that was very professional, and say, you know, sorry, it's 2 hours and not, and then let some, a customer think, or anybody
Yeah.
from the county think, well, wow, they like 2 hours all the time, but they were explaining
Oh, good.
to the
good.
folks why
Wow,
that was
yeah.
happening.
And it was a pretty limited, probably about a 5-day. Around the October 22nd was probably one of our hardest, you know, that week was probably one of the slowest, hardest times. And we got, I'm amazed how fast they really, because I went through all the training. I went through the clerical, what the front does, and then I went through the medical to see what the medical would have to do so that I would understand the entire record. They did training for a whole week with each of our clerical staff and a whole week with each of our nursing staff for a whole day every day. So they really put a lot of time into training them and making them feel comfortable with the new system. And it's great because it's going to be easy to catch mistakes and to do self-audits on your records. Did I forget anything? Is there anything I need to do? You know, those kinds of, it has a lot of benefits to going electronic. It's just been that transition curve. So December 5th, speaking of flu shot, you made me think there, we have across the state of Tennessee, they're doing free flu shots starting December 5th, and we're doing them in a point of distribution center. So that's just our fancy word that we've come up with for how to handle emergencies. So if there was an emergency in the community and everybody needed to get, you know, Cipro, let's say, for something that had happened. We train on that. We have plans for it. We work with the schools. The schools would be our pods. That's where we would set up. We would disperse all the medicine for the county and through those pods. So we're practicing that with the flu shots on the 5th, just as a kind of practice and pulling out our stuff. So it will be in the Murfreesboro Health Department. We'll have staff just dedicated. It'll be really fast, because that's what we're practicing. So if you want to come and get your flu shot or haven't gotten it yet, that would be a good time to come and get it. And the hours are 8 to 4:30, and it's in the Murfreesboro site. So we're doing that on the 5th. Something else I wanted to tell you guys. I appreciate your patience and for saying that about them, because we did kind of try to make scripts of how to explain it to people, because we knew that there would be some people going, what?
I'm glad they told me
Wow.
I couldn't wait. I'm one of those, I couldn't wait 2 hours.
Yeah, most people can't. Yeah, most people can't. And so we're usually pretty efficient. December 11th, we're doing a special thing. I just wanted to invite you guys or anybody who wants to come. It's the Commissioner of Health is coming down to the Health Department to present an award. So you know, for years we've been talking about prevention projects that we do at the Health Department. One of our prevention projects has been recognized at the platinum level, which is the highest recognition you can receive. And the commissioner comes and does a special visit, meets with the community partners, meets with all the staff who were part of the team. And it's just a nice little celebration. So that'll be on December 11th at the Murfreesboro Health Department from 2 to 4. And of course, you're all invited if you'd like to come to that. We're excited for that team who worked on that. So all of our staff are divided into teams, and they work on big prevention projects. Some work with the schools, and some work with seniors. Some work with infants and NICU issues. So there's just a big, long group of different projects that they work on, daycares, all kinds of things like that. And several of our projects have been recognized, but this one is getting recognition for platinum, and it is our Chef's Academy program. Just a short review. We teach the kids about how to grow healthy food, where does it come from, how do you cook it, cut it, prepare it. They learn everything. There's a chef attached to the program, and he teaches them everything. And then at the end, they have a little mini Iron Chef cook-off. And don't be a judge, that's really hard, which I've done. So, and then the healthy meal that's chosen as the winner from all the schools goes onto the school menu for the whole year.
Oh,
and so the
wow.
kids and the teachers can choose that menu periodically. And that's a program that we're doing currently with the city school, but we've already reached out and set up some stuff with our county schools as well on after-school projects, doing those kind of mini Chef's Academies with them. So that's something fun that we're get him recognized for. Every 3 years, we do a community health needs assessment, and you guys have heard me talk about this before, and this is just everybody who has to do with anything to do with health. So we've got Primary Care and Hope Clinic, Meharry, all the different medical clinics, VA, we all come together and we work on what's called a community health needs assessment. And it's just like it says, what does the community health-wise need? And there's lots of processes to it. We do community listening sessions where we ask the regular community person, you know, from all different, we had one in Smyrna, we had one in Laverne, we had 2 in Murfreesboro. And we just invited people to tell us, hey, what's going good, what's going bad, what do we need to work on as a community. And we put all this together with some statistical data, and we present it in a community summit every 3 years. And that is December 12th, and it's at Patterson. We had it at Ag Center last time. This time it's at the Patterson. And what time? 9 to 12. Yeah, 9 to 12, and we'll go over the data, and we'll also, the people who are there are going to help us plan the next step, which is once we know the data, we know what the problems are, and they're identified and prioritized, what do we do to address them? So that's part of the big part of the summit that we call it, that we'll do on December 12th. Those people will help us kind of plan what's going on here in homelessness, or you know, transportation or housing, and what do we need to do in the health realm to move that forward or move that into a more positive. It's a very interesting thing, so if you happen to be free and you can come, we'd love to have you. We talked about flu shots, the Epi record coming out. Okay, I think that's my list of things I wanted to go over. Do you have any questions?
A lot of good stuff going on. Any questions for Ms. Garrett?
Move to approve the report, Madam Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Okay, and I bring to you just some cleaning up our contract that we have. If you remember, again, we talked about this in the past. They gave us a tobacco money in the hopes that the legislative branch would decide to give us the same amount they had given us every year from the tobacco settlement dollars. But this year they decided not to, but we had already sent the contract through. So, because of the timing. So really, all we have in that line item is what we saved from previous years where we had not used it in the prevention projects. So it came down just a little bit. And you can see that on the amendment that Ms. Nolan helped pull together for me.
All right, any questions on that? I entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
To approve the amendment and the revised contract.
That's what I heard.
Yes. Thank you for clarifying. Make sure I use the right words.
Second.
Second. Okay, Mr. Gurley. Will you give us a roll call?
Commissioner Cook,
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin, Commissioner Gammon,
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips, Commissioner Allen.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate your support.
We spoke briefly before the meeting about the possibility of canceling the December meeting, but the school system may have a building plan they want to discuss with us.
Okay.
So.
The date to be determined yet.
Yeah, we've got a couple of tentative dates. We were checking the calendar. It will either be December the 20th or January the 3rd, but I need to get with Vicki. And if any of these folks, if anybody has a preference, and we'll also check with the school board and see kind of how their meetings fall, to see if there's one that's more beneficial than the other. The 20th would back us up 5 days from when we normally meet.
Right.
And the 3rd would push us out about a week.
Okay. And I can do either, so
Okay.
I'm flexible on those 2 days.
I'll let you know.
All right.
Question before she takes off,
Yeah.
just to educate me.
Absolutely.
I haven't been a commissioner since 1998. When I came down to visit, I noticed a lot of vehicles, but there wasn't many people in there. Somebody said, well, they're having, they're teaching Spanish.
Uh-huh.
I'm not aware. Can you?
It's a
tell us
partnership,
what
so we
we're
do a lot of community partnerships, and we have some great office or conference room space that doesn't get used all the time. So when we partner with, and that's one of the partnerships we're doing with Read to Succeed, and they have an English as a
English as a second language.
second language, and they come, and it doesn't matter what language you speak, you can come to this class and learn English. And we do it twice a
week.
Yeah.
Yes, on Wednesdays and Fridays. We do it with the Smyrna, at the Smyrna site. And so we're
That's
looking to,
wonderful.
looking to expand it throughout Rutherford County, but it's a great partnership and really just trying to help people, especially when it comes to health literacy, learning how to read their medications and take their medications, but also just life skills.
Yeah. I was just interested.
And it was hugely popular. We weren't quite sure if it would, what we had heard in our listening sessions that was something they needed more of. And so we did that partnership, and then boom, we took up 2 rooms, and then we took up 3 rooms, and I was like, wow, so.
Well, being a police
yeah.
officer, I'm glad to see we do something like it. I mean, we've run into that a lot, language barrier, and I have an app, and then I have a couple of people that I call and put on speakerphone, hey, can you translate it?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause especially when it comes to police business, you want to know exactly what's going on
Yes.
if they can't speak
Yeah.
English.
Yeah, and that's something we have a language line that we use at the health department to communicate with all the different languages that come through our doors.
Well, that was new too. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. I just wanted to know what that was.
Yeah, yeah. I should have brought it. Actually, it was on my report. I just didn't.
Thank you so
you.
much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, community care report is the next item on our agenda. The report's on your iPad. You've had a chance to take a look at that. Ms. Cook, you serve on that board. Is there anything in the report you want to point out to us?
Well, we had lost our 5-star rating, and we're working hard to get back on the 5-star rating. So right now, we're at 4-star,
That's fantastic.
and so we're hoping to be back for long.
Very good.
Takes a lot of work.
All right, any questions on that report? I entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All right, Ms. Knowles, you're Ms. Jolly.
I am.
All right, special projects.
Okay. And my report is just a continuation of the monthly bills that have come through that we pay, and the contracts have been issued by the school board.
Okay.
Anything to do on the report, Lisa?
No, sir, other than we pay bills.
How big is the amendments?
Yes, it has been updated for the amendments, yeah, you're right. But no new projects.
Any questions? I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. All right, school board. Mr. Sandy, Mr. Spurlock, welcome.
Good evening. Okay, what we have here tonight are 2 amendments to the budget, and also we have some updated enrollment numbers. So we'll start, I guess, with the amendments first. Okay, general purpose budget amendments, Fund 141, special ed funds for high-cost students. SPED, educational assistance. The amendment uses $229,574 in additional state flow-through funds, account 47143, for IDEA students in order to fund 7 additional educational assistance for high-need students. These funds must be budgeted as part of this year's special education expenditures. I recommend motion to amend $229,574 in additional state flow-through funds for IDEA students in order to fund 7 additional educational assistance for high-need students as presented.
This is all flow-through money, all state funded,
All federal money that flows through the state, yes, sir.
and the 229 will cover benefits.
Everything.
What about next year?
Well, that's a good question.
And this particular pot of money, both of these we really don't have much choice on. We have to provide services to meet their IEPs. So their options will flow into the BEP formula, so they'll flow into our funding stream that way.
So So there should be funding next year.
Some.
Right, not complete. And what we're seeing is we're seeing more one-to-one EAs, educational assistants for some of these, these students that have, medical needs and also that have some emotional needs. We're seeing more and more of that.
Are these instructors spread, or are they located in a couple of places?
They're spread out. I mean, it's pretty prevalent throughout the county.
Go ahead and do number 2 since they're in the same
All
fund.
right. State portfolio peer review funds. Rutherford County Schools will receive $12,992 in other state grants revenue in order to pay a stipend for the teachers who participate in the state's portfolio peer review. Recommend motion to amend $12,992 in other state grant revenue in order to pay a stipend to the teachers who participate in the state portfolio peer review, a stipend as presented. Now what this was the teachers that volunteered to go and be trained to be scores for the new kindergarten portfolio assessment. And I think this covers everything from what their stipend was to their other benefits.
Any questions on either of these?
I have one. You were talking about how, I want to get back to Commissioner Phillips' question. You said that it's spread around. Is there any certain area that is more than the others?
In location or
Yes.
schools? Not quite, not really, because we're approximately like 12 or 13% special ed students throughout the county. And, you will have some pockets of your comprehensive development students, the CDC students, in some areas. And to be honest with you, a lot of that is predicated on space and also the quality of the program.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because you're talking about hiring new people, and Commissioner Phillips touched on, you said you're going to spread them around. But I mean, why I'm asking that is where we could take more assistance to one area.
Yeah. One of the things, to be perfectly honest with you, is educational assistants are very difficult to hire, period. And what we're seeing a lot of it, where we have two systems. We have a city system and we have a county system. We see a lot of our kids that are coming to us with their IEPs that require an ancillary aid, a one-to-one aid, and that's really creating an issue. It's becoming a thing that we're going to have some kind of intervention soon.
So if they come to us from a city school with
Right,
the IEP, we have to honor it.
We have to honor that IEP. Now, we can come in and show our due diligence that we are addressing whatever that specific need of that student without that ancillary aid, but we have seen it go up tremendously.
Is there a particular age or grade where that emerges, where that need tends to emerge?
You obviously somewhere in upper elementary,
Yeah, that's
you'll
kinda
see
what I was
that.
thinking. Third, 3, 5,
right.
that's what I was thinking.
We had to amend positions in last year for
Right.
this. It's one of those, I think back to when, as the expectation of what nursing services we would provide has changed due to law cases across the country. And it reminds me of that level of expectation at which we are now having to provide, and we're calling them ancillary EAs, and we move, if the student leaves our system, we reassign the EA to another, but we're having to do it more and more.
And quite frankly, when you do reassign them, there's a position opening
Yeah.
up for them. That's how, it's not, we're able to eliminate the position.
Right.
Yeah.
This is a mandate. I believe that's what you're
Right.
hinting at, that this is a mandate, and it's a funded mandate this year, but we're not sure that it'll be a funded program for the future. Jeff, when you put together follow-up budgets, if you could make a note to kind of earmark that and explain to us, this is where we got the money from last year, this is how much we're getting this year.
Last year, we didn't get it, and we still had to amend and cover the positions.
How many we have like these special needs?
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's quite a bit. We've gone over the budget and we've seen how that's grown exponentially over the last several years.
We're talking millions.
Not yet.
But we're slowly reaching
Yeah.
to that point, yeah.
Yeah. We're under $1 million as
Right.
of this point.
Mhm.
Yeah. In the financial summary that we give to the board, I separated EAs out to be a separate line from other support staff because of this growth we've been seeing in recent years.
Do you have any idea of why the increase, why the change? Are people becoming more aware in the area, or we just really don't know?
No, not really. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think some of them are more, there's some more severe issues that has to be addressed.
Well, it seems like with every industry there are trends, and so it just seems like this has become
Right.
a trend in the educational industry, but this is sort of becoming somewhat expected. So we just have to be very diligent to make sure that it's
Absolutely.
only delivered
Mm-hmm.
when needed, but is delivered when needed.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we do work, we have one student coming back into our system from a very costly placement. We, special ed and our staff attorney have worked together to come to an agreement with the parents that we can meet those requirements here. We watch these cases and try to resolve.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's difficult, I know.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
Take one and pass these on.
We need to vote on
Need
this?
to vote on this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we need a motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Irvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen? Yes.
Okay, what you see in front of you is the enrollment figures of the day. We've got it broken down by the schools, the grade bands, and also K-12, and also including pre-K 12, pre-K and through 12. We've got 46,000, actually this number has increased since today. It's actually 46,050, so we added 4 more students yesterday. And pre-K through 12, we got 46,716. Kind of looking at the numbers, as far as our growth is concerned, it's somewhere around 1,134 students since this same time last year. K through 5 elementary, about 340 students were added. 6-8, which is our middle school, about 518 were added. And 9-12, about 276 were added. So we're currently seeing more growth in our middle school. And less growth, I think what we'd had in previous years, if I'm not mistaken, was more high school growth.
Right, well, it's been
It's
high
kind
school.
of dropped down somewhat. And we still got growth, but it's dropped some. And it looks like the middle school. But if you kind of track your grade bands and look at the number of 8th graders and things of that nature at some of these schools, you can see that the wave is coming this way. Like, for example, Blackman Middle, which currently has an enrollment of 1,497, they actually added 91 students from this same time last year, and they have 508 8th graders.
Mr. Spurlock, when you open up this new high school, how many students are you projecting to put in there first year?
About 1,750.
So as soon as you take those from Blackman to put in Rockville, and you got 508, how many of those 508 will go to Blackman High School?
Well, that's a good question. Right now, probably at least 60% of those.
So you'll be right back where you are.
Well, you're pretty close to it, right? You know, one of the things as we're looking at our rezoning, we see that on that border of 96, either on the north or the south, is where the great portion of Blackman High School's enrollment exists, either 3 miles back south or 3 miles north. It's very dense there, right on that area. And that's one of the things when we're rezoning, parents don't understand, you know, just, we have to go in to extract out, you know.
How are your meetings going?
We've had 2, you know, I think they're going well. You know, there's we're getting feedback and we're listening to the feedback. Like we tell them each time. We have another one coming up here on December 3rd at Stewart's Creek. But our purpose is we want to reduce, and I didn't say eliminate, reduce overcrowdedness and reduce the number of portables.
So when you open Rockvale, you'll only have about, I understand it's geared about to the same as Stewart's Creek, so around 2,200 or so.
I think it may be 2250, probably maybe 2300.
Stewart's Creek is full right now by what it was built
Its
for.
capacity is still, its capacity sits somewhere about 92%, but truthfully, when you start looking at school capacity, you can go to about 115 before you're hitting an issue.
Like Blackman is now.
Right. Well, Blackman, you know, it's a lot larger than you think.
Right. But really and truly, we're only going to have a 500 or 600 student cushion, right?
We're not going to have a whole lot. You know, a lot of it's going to be predicated on these numbers of the middle school, what that looks like going forward.
But it looks like we're going to have an increase.
A wave, right. We'll see something.
Unless they have a lot of
Right.
dropouts, which we don't want.
No, we don't want that. You know, and of course, we all know that they're building everywhere. I mean, I think that's a no-brainer. It's hard to predict, you know, the growth doesn't come uniformly. It's hard to predict that part, but we do, it's coming. And it's also hard to predict who's going into the homes. We can project and look at the price of the home and kind of go from that standpoint in terms of, are they going to be elementary age kids, or are they going to be middle school age kids, or so forth.
So is this about what you expected to see this year?
It is. It's about what it has been the last 2 or 3 years. You know, you know, it's going to be interesting going forward to see, you know, what transpires. If we see the elementary stay the same, which I don't know if it will or not, really the elementary is, you know, is a little bit higher than the high school, but not that much higher. You know.
What's our percent? Because I know it always changes. Our percent looks smaller because our base number gets bigger. So.
It's about, what is it? Yeah, our base is, it's probably somewhere hovering around 293.
Yeah.
It's sticking, we're steadily, as we're increasing that base, we're sticking about at that 3, cross our fingers, at about 3%.
Which is what we typically try to predict, I think. So.
Now, when that base gets larger, that 3%
Right.
gets, the number gets larger.
Is that, I assume that's part of what's going to come up in your conversation with the joint meeting?
Right.
Yeah. You want to talk to this group about that?
Well, on the joint meeting, I think a lot of that is going to be talking about, you know, the BEP formula, looking at that and how growth lags behind and so forth. And also, they're going to be discussing some things about vouchers, you know, because we do know that there had been some conversation, you know, it had been about vouchers. I think Governor-elect Lee has stated that he's for school choice, which would include vouchers. And you know, our thing is we already have school choice. It's called magnet schools. It's called dual enrollment, dual credit. It's called AP classes. It's called IB. You know, and hopefully in the future Cambridge. So we have choices, and we also are working on our online school. Yeah. And I'm not sure on that date. Is it December? It was either the 19th or the 20th. Is it the 19th?
Everybody should have got an invitation to that, so if you get a chance to come, it'll be good to attend. Because that's one of the pieces that I've tried to bring up every time I've had an audience with our legislative delegation. I've tried to encourage them to change the growth fund formula off of percentage and move it to butts and seats.
Right.
Because our percentage might look small, but when you're talking
Right.
about actual butts and seats, because they're
Absolutely.
the ones who control the student-teacher ratio.
Right.
And so when that's the number they need to look at. So I don't think we can send that message
No,
home hard enough.
Absolutely.
Because that's how
Until
the.
you say it.
Yeah.
You know, I was in some training here a couple of weeks ago where I'm losing my mind now. I can't remember the people over finances. Help me out here. That comes in. And
Comptroller?
The fiscal
Comptroller,
Okay,
thank
okay.
you. Comptroller came in, and that was one, and they were getting from the directors of schools, and that was one of the things that I stated about the growth, you know, and full, you know, and everybody's preaching the same message. Now, you know, the rural systems, they're concerned, but I did appreciate what the gentleman said. He said, we do not want to take away from the urban school districts because we know we want everyone to be funded, you know, fairly. But it's a challenge. You know? It's some things that we have to continue to work on. Mhm.
Did you want to mention anything about TCAT, about the visit that we had there with your students?
Absolutely. We had 40, I think it was 44 of our students that took what's called the Work Keys test, which is aligned somewhat with ACT. But, and there's bronze, and there's gold, and there's silver, and there's platinum. And there was 44 kids that took it. And out of those 44, I want to say 10 got gold, somewhere around that number. And there was 2 got platinum, and the rest of them got bronze. But that's a very you know, a significant movement on the part of Holloway High School. And Ms. Drayton and her staff over there did a fantastic job. And what I liked about it was the business people that were there, and some of our elected officials were there, and it was a good time to celebrate that success. And we want to do that, continue going forward. One of the things we think we're doing real well is we're forging partnerships with our business industry, and and also I can't say enough good things about our Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
They do an absolutely fantastic job.
Yeah, I was going to say, Beth Duffield with Rutherford
She
Works
does.
is really the one that was the driving force behind that, because that creates what industry considers a work-ready community. Because you've got employers who then profile their jobs based on a certain set of criteria or qualifications, which then tie back to that designation that those students received. So if you have a student that comes to you, a potential hire that comes to you, and they have a gold standard in these areas, and you have a job that has a need for somebody with gold, you know that's going to be a pretty good fit from the beginning. And so,
I think we're currently at 15% toward that goal of 100%.
yes,
Yeah.
Because I know in the state of South Carolina, every single county is a work-ready community, and that's a huge draw for them when they're doing their economic development and they're trying to recruit employers. So I know it was a big deal for Rutherford
It was.
County to become a work-ready community. So,
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic.
How's your staffing going for the new school?
Well, we've hired a principal. He's hired, currently he's I think he's getting ready to hire 2 assistant principals, and he's hiring a guidance counselor and a secretary. Now what we'll do, after we get the rezoning over with and everything, numbers, because there will be some, you know, there'll be some there could possibly be grandfathering of seniors, you know, staying at their home school. And that will impact some of the numbers. But when we get hard numbers, that's when we sit down, we look at our staff and who moves, you know, and stuff like that.
Have you hired for the elementary school yet?
I'm making that decision tomorrow.
Okay.
We have 2 finalists, both of them are principals in our system.
Okay.
And I interviewed the second interview last week, and I'll be making a decision tomorrow. I did make a decision on the Smyrna Middle position. Yeah, it's already been announced.
Very good. And then one other thing, the Great American Shake. I was able to be a judge in that recently. Is that for all 5th graders in every school?
Every one of our schools takes does that.
Talk to this group.
Yeah, that's one where they work on their soft skills, and they're taught how to engage, you know, a person in terms of being able to carry a conversation, keep eye contact, you know, and a firm handshake. I was amazed. I'll be honest with you. I went to John Coleman last year. It was my first experience with it, and was met with kids that just shook your hand out and said, "Good morning, Mr. Spurlock, and welcome to John Coleman."
Yeah.
You know, and I
David
was
Urey.
David Urey, same thing. There was some, you know, it's good to see that.
It
quite
really was
frankly.
great, yeah.
I would like for it, if it was if I could get my wishes, to carry over,
Yes.
you know, into high school. You know,
It absolutely needs to be in every
'cause
grade.
it's good.
The other thing that I thought was interesting about that is it's a competition for these kids. So in the morning session, the entire fifth grade comes through, and the afternoon, I think it was the top 30
Right.
got to come through, and then and you score. Every judge gives each child a score on very specific criteria, and then I think 12 of that group were then going to get to go the following Monday and have like a meal etiquette, you know, training where they were going
Right.
to, and so they were all really, you know, vying for that.
They
and
were.
and then they can go to state. I mean,
That's right.
it's a big competition.
competition,
You
it
know, and
is.
so they get what ultimately the prize is a Ron Clark camp, I think.
That is correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So they were eager and they were competitive.
They were
and
competitive.
They were. It was, especially the afternoon. It was the cream of the crop in the afternoon. That was the
There
that
were
was
some
fun
good
one to
ones.
be at.
You could pretty
Yeah.
much, you know, and I do appreciate all the
Yeah.
volunteers.
Yeah.
I know, I mean, they did a fantastic job,
Yeah.
and those kids appreciate it.
I started scoring high, and then I caught myself at the end having to do like asterisks and exclamation
Yes,
points
that's-
to say, okay, this guy was, you know, really, really
Because
good.
you
So,
had so many
yeah.
good come by,
Yeah.
you didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was good. So if you get an invitation to do that, be
Do
sure you
it.
participate.
I would strongly encourage you to.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions for Mr. Spurlock or Mr. Sandvik?
You mentioned potential meeting dates for December.
Yes.
What would you guys prefer?
Yeah. What would
Hey,
we
we
do you know
will,
when you're?
you know, you said the 19th, December the 19th was the,
That's the joint meeting.
okay, so
So
the 20th would work.
20th or the 3rd.
Either one will work for us.
Okay.
What time does the school system, what day does the school systems take a break?
Yeah, when's your break?
They
start?
take, what was it, 21st? I think it's 21st is their 2-hour day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So does anybody in this group have a preference if we should,
Yes, 20th.
20th is your preference?
Mhm.
20th is fine.
Okay, all right. We'll check with Vicki and see if we can set it for the 20th, because that's the closest to our meeting date anyway. So.
We were talking, what did you say?
I was just
Sorry.
asking if anybody had a preference on either of those two dates, and so we're gonna ask Vicki if we can get this room for the 20th. So, as long as that works for everybody, we'll stay on schedule with that. So, because you think you have a building conversation we're gonna
We
have.
do, we think we'll have this completed by the end of this week. Yes. Mhm.
And will there be land discussion as well at that point, or?
You know, right now, we know the 231 North, that's good to go. And I've been told today, I had a conversation with Gary Clardy, who's working with our land, is that we should know something in 2 weeks, the additional
Okay.
land. Mhm.
All right. Any more questions? All right, if there's no more business, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.